Welcome back in another installment of Where We Live. How'd you like to live in a place called Weedpatch? About 2,200 people do, and we couldn't find a single one with a bad thing to say about it. What's the story of this little unincorporated burg?
Well, allow us to fill you in. Here with a Memorial Day edition of Where We Live is 17's Robert Price.
There's not much left of the microscopic farm town of Weedpatch. Not much left except places like this. Used to be Collins Auction, where country music performers would come and stand on flatbed trucks and perform for the Okies. Now the widely ignored landmark is a tow yard, and the story of this disappearing hamlet is all but lost to the ravages of time. Fact is, Weedpatch has played an indirect but meaningful role in the formation of Bakersfield's cultural identity, in the politics, religious, linguistic, musical, even culinary character of the southern San Joaquin Valley. Thanks to its association with the Sunset Labor Camp of the 1930s and 40s, the setting of The Grapes of Wrath, Weedpatch commands a certain historical gravitas. More than one famous country music star has taken an emotional tour of the weathered musical mecca, which is set to become a state park. In the late 1940s and throughout the 1950s, the people of Weedpatch, most of them relocated, entertainment-starved Okies, many of them residents of the nearby labor camp, gathered Sunday afternoons outside Collins Auction, a consignment store specializing in used furniture and appliances, to hear live music. This is where Billy Mize and Bill Woods, among others, played some of their first public shows, making Weedpatch one of the earliest incubators of the Bakersfield sound. Collins Auction still stands. Here's the building in about 1972, a half-boarded-up used furniture store. Today, the town of Weedpatch, about 12 miles south-southeast of Bakersfield and 2 miles south of Lamont, is a shadow of its still humble self, known less to current residents as a landing spot for those Dust Bowl migrants than for its distinctively amusing name. Don't confuse Weedpatch with Dogpatch, home of the lovably dim-witted Little Abner. Al Capp's newspaper comic strip debuted in 1934. The same year, Sunset School opened to serve Weedpatch's youngest Depression-era migrants. Coincidence? But never mind Dogpatch. Where did Weedpatch get its name? The answer is not complicated. Early settler Joseph Kuda arrived in 1874 from Bohemia, today's Czech Republic. He and his fellow immigrants grew wheat, alfalfa, and barley, and they sent their cattle to graze out in the weed patch. Come March, depending on rainfall, those weeds could grow to 4 feet in the rich Central Valley soil. When the farmers went to round up their cattle as dusk settled below Bear Mountain, they invariably met up in the weed patch. By 1922, the year Weedpatch was established, the unincorporated village had about 3,000 residents. Now it's about 2,200. Not much change over the course of a whole century, not in terms of pure numbers, but in another sense, Weedpatch has seen dramatic change. In the 1930s, the population was overwhelmingly Caucasian, but starting in the mid-60s, with the termination of the Bracero program of temporary Mexican farm labor, a generation of more permanent Latino field workers took up residence. When Sunset School opened some 90 years ago, the population was 99% white. Today, the Vineland School District's 2 schools, Vineland and Sunset, are 99% Latino. Today, as 90 years ago, Weedpatch is one of the poorest places in Kern County. Median annual household income just over $21,000. 48% of the population lives below the poverty line, which is not to say civic pride is lacking. When maps of the area were published in the early 1970s, townsfolk noticed that their spot on State Route 184, Weedpatch Highway, had been renamed. They no longer lived in Weedpatch. Now some of those maps said South Lamont. There was an uproar.
They wanted to call it South Lamont, but the people wanted it to be Weedpatch.
And the people went nuts and said, no, you're not. It's going to be called Weedpatch. And I don't even know if you have a sign going in that it's an unincorporated area, but it is Weedpatch. And now it's on none of our maps out here. We have a lot of vintage maps and a map collection, and Weedpatch is not on that map. So it's all in our popular imagination.
In our popular imagination, and maybe that's good enough. Perhaps some realtors were reluctant to market a place called Weedpatch, but other folks are apparently proud of it. At Post Office 93241, known as the Lamont Post Office, even though it's closer to Weedpatch, they tell the story of a man who came in one day wanting to rent a P.O. box.
Except instead of Lamont or Arvin or Bakersfield, he wanted it to say Weedpatch. The postal clerk said, sure, that's fine, but why? He said, well, because he's opening a cannabis dispensary and he just thought that Weedpatch sounded better. No word on whether or not he wanted P.O. Box number 420.
And there's no truth to the rumor that this is the official logo of the town of Weedpatch.
No, this is not dispensary heaven. We could not find any cannabis shops in Weedpatch or Lamont. Is that a reason to be proud of Weedpatch? Its funny, pun, vulnerable name? Of course not. But this is. Roberto Uresti is the superintendent of the two-school Vineland School District.
People ask, where are you from? Most people say Bakersfield. I say, well, I work in Weedpatch. And they're like, Weedpatch, what's that? So that gives me the opportunity to talk about our rich history here. The children are very respectful in this district. Our substitute teachers will say, you know what, Weedpatch is a little bit out here. I could work in the school in Bakersfield, but at the end of the day, I feel better, I feel good.
Despite the presence of at least 8 tire shops along Weedpatch Highway, the area does not claim to be the tire capital of the world. The economy revolves around field work, abundant field work, the same sort of work that drew the Okies to the Central Valley 90 years ago. The Weedpatch labor camp is still active after all these years, too. Seasonal workers start arriving in May, but the camp has a much different look than it did when John Steinbeck and Woody Guthrie were passing through. For starters, the accommodations.
The last of those old tent cabins were dismantled and discarded 30 years ago, replaced by these more modern apartments.
Other remnants of old Weedpatch are gone as well. Weedpatch Supermarket, which for decades occupied the corner of Weedpatch Highway and Buena Vista Road, downtown Weedpatch, 100 yards from Collins Auction, is now Amigos Supermarket. Feeding those field workers and anyone else who's hungry is an important income source here. Weedpatch doesn't have many sit-down eateries. This La Mina, attached to a gas station and mini market, is about it.
Yeah, it's a nice town. I feel like it's very, we're very isolated, so I feel like the community knows each other very well.
One restaurant, one market, but Weedpatch is food truck central, thanks to Benjamin Rodriguez's commercial kitchen. He services 15 food trucks here, plus his own, Doña Maria's, which sets up daily near the Clinica Sierra Vista Medical Center on Hall Road in Lamont. You might wonder who's in charge here in Weedpatch. Supervisor David Couch has jurisdiction, but his Lamont office was not staffed on the occasions when we passed through. Maybe it's the Vineland School Superintendent.
I've been looking for the mayor of Weedpatch, and I think I just found him.
No, there's actually another person out there.
My vote goes to this guy. Remember him? Brian Ash, who lives next door to the tire store, one of the tire stores.
How are you? Good. Hey.
Alas, he's not running for office, but his finger is definitely on the Weedpatch pulse.
Well, I've been here 61 years. The only thing we've got new is curb and gutter, maybe a little sidewalk. Yeah. Other than that, the people come and go, put a lot of produce in the stores. Yeah. Hard-working people.
Hard-working people indeed, raising well-behaved, achievement-minded kids. Maybe America could use a few more Weedpatches. In the town of Weedpatch, Robert Price, 17 News.
We'll leave it to Bob Price to find a little place like Weedpatch and make such a big story out of it.
Absolutely love it. Andy, put someone up for mayor.
All right.